Oh, oh,
Joseph, what's
oh.
wrong?
I just had the most terrible dream. That speed dueling was announced, and instead of waiting for the card pool announcement, I just assumed it was Duel Links and made this terrible clickbait video. Oh, thank goodness it was only a dream.
Right.
Huh. Oh well. Time to start the day. I can't wait to normal summon Fairy Tale Snow. Hey everybody, Joseph Rothschild here, aka MBT, back again with another episode of 10-Minute Testing. Well, it's the 25th, which means Yu-Gi-Oh! As we know it has finally ended! Congratulations! You made it to the end of history! Birthed from the bloated, decaying corpse of Solitaire but with extra steps, however, is a new way to play everyone's third favorite card game. With new rules and a new card pool, speed dueling is finally sanctioned. And as a new generation of duelists seek to make their first steps into the world of dueling, I know deep in my heart that a fair amount of you want to crush their dreams out of the starting gate. I present to you Speed Dueling on Day 1. So before we get started, there are a few things I need to get out of the way. Firstly, speed dueling introduces a new set of rules to the game. They are as follows. 1. You start with 4,000 life points. 2. You only have 3 monster and 3 spell and trap card zones. 3. You only draw 4 cards at the start of the game and only once per turn. And 4. Each player begins the game with a skill, an uncounterable action they can take once they've fulfilled a certain condition. Finally, 5. Your turn ends after your battle phase, so no main phase 2. Secondly, card quality is radically different. Since there's such a shallow pool of cards, cards that are good in a vacuum are much more important than cards that are good provided you've accessed a 20-card hyper-consistent combo. You can check out the full combo on the link below. And thirdly, the beginning format will be warped around a few very specific format staples. Veterans of Duel Links will remember just how powerful battle traps were, and we've got a couple of extremely powerful ones. Expect Windstorm of Aquata and Kunai with Chain to comprise roughly 100% of your opponent's back row. So with that, let's check out some decks. We'll be using Dueling Book today. Percy does support speed duels, but has not yet integrated skills into their build. The first strategy we'll be taking a look at is Gravekeepers, a fan-favorite archetype that's been promised future support. The keen observers among you will recognize we're missing one particularly critical card, one specific spell that really bridges the valley between their necrotic graveyard effects, so to speak. Necro Valley is an extremely strong card, of course, and not to be taken lightly. We just got it in Duel Links, for God's sakes. But the remainder of the legal Gravekeepers still facilitate a consistent and powerful game plan. The reasoning behind playing GK is twofold. First, one of the best draw spells in the game, Wonder Wand, works perfectly with their typing and leads to massive pluses with Gravekeeper's Recruiter. And secondly, they have access to a tribal Call of the Haunted. Couple that with a conditional lockout suite of Hidden Tombs of Necro Valley, win conditions like Gravekeeper's Oracle, and a suite of situational one-ofs you can find off of Recruiter, and you might accidentally have a Tier 1 deck in the making. So with that, let's get into the card by card. Firstly, we're on 3 copies of Gravekeeper's Recruiter as our searcher and the best card in our deck, 3 copies of Gravekeeper's Priestess, which counts the field as Necro Valley provided there's no active field spell, and 1 of suites of Gravekeeper's Oracle for finishing games, Gravekeeper's Spear Soldier for facilitating OTKs, and Gravekeeper's Assailant for cleaning up troublesome attack position monsters. For spells, we're on 2 copies of Hidden Temples of Necro Valley, which prevents special summoning, but only as long as you have both a Gravekeeper's Monster and Necro Valley active, otherwise it'll self-destruct. We've also got 3 Wonder Wand, followed by 3 Kunai with Chain, and 3 Rite of Spirit. We're playing Gravekeeper's Lot as our skill, though I'd have a hard time justifying it over Mindscan or Destiny Draw. Our match is up against a Blue Eyes White Dragon. This should be a pretty good matchup for us, provided our opponent doesn't open the nuts. The worst case scenario for us would involve special summoning a Blue Eyes White Dragon on their first turn with a Champion's Vigilance set, but a very specific hand is required to make that happen, and it appears our opponent has not opened it. We've opened quite well. The card we draw off the top is Gravekeeper's Priestess, meaning once we normal summon her, the field is treated as Necro Valley, allowing us to access Hidden Temples of Necro Valley. This prevents the special summon of any monster that's not a Gravekeeper, which means since our opponent hasn't already special summoned a Blue Eyes White Dragon, unless they out Priestess, it's not likely to make it to the battlefield. Our opponent's set card was a Blue Dragon Summoner. They actually play very few outs to a face-up Gravekeeper's Priestess with Hidden Temples of Necro Valley attached, one of which is Blue Dragon Summoner. There's only 2 remaining in the deck, but in a 20-card deck, it's surprisingly easy to access multiples, and our opponent has done just that. They'll go to battle phase, but thankfully for us, Kunai with Chain is just the removal spell we need. It's able to be activated in the damage step and will do just that, allowing our monster to beat our opponents. Because Gravekeeper's Priestess gives a 200 attack point buff to every Gravekeeper's monster, including herself, we are able to destroy our opponent's Blue Dragon Summoner, and they're able to add a Blue Eyes White Dragon to their hand. Afterwards, they're going to pass it back to us. We'll draw for turn, and what do we find but a second copy of Hidden Temples of Necro Valley? Well, it's always nice to have multiples. We'll normal summon a Spear Soldier and go to battle phase. At the start of the battle phase, our opponent is going to flip up their set copy of Windstorm of Aquata. That's going to switch all of our monsters to defense mode and buy them a turn. That's fine with us because I will take anything that prolongs the game state, especially when Hidden Temples of Necro Valley is not in any immediate danger. Our opponent draws for turn, recognizes it's unlikely they're going to out our board, sets a card in order to prevent their imminent demise, and passes it back. We'll switch all of our monsters to attack position and go to battle phase, attack with Spear Soldier to try and get in some piercing damage, do just that as our opponent reveals the Lord of D in their hand, and attack directly with this copy of Gravekeeper's Priestess. That deals a significant amount of damage to our opponent's life points. We'll pass it back to them, they'll draw for turn, and then almost immediately after we'll concede. Our second deck list is BEWD. While the argument for playing Gravekeepers was a thematic Call of the Haunted, the argument for playing Blue Eyes is a thematic Solemn Judgment. Champion's Vigilance is one of the very few cards that's restricted in duel links, and with good reason. Kaiba's skill, Dragon Caller, facilitates extremely early Blue Eyes White Dragons, and they both boast an attack stat that is a force to be reckoned with, as well as possess a natural immunity to Kunai with Chain by way of Lord of D. So with that, let's get into the card by card. First, we're playing 3 copies of Blue Dragon Summoner in order to get Blue Eyes into our hand. After that is 3 Lord of D and 3 of the Big BEWD himself. For spells, we're on 2 Flute of Summoning Dragon, we'd prefer to draw the Lord, and 3 Wonder Wand to plus off a Blue Dragon Summoner akin to Gravekeeper's Recruiter. For traps, we're on 3 copies of Champion's Vigilance and 3 Windstorm of Aquata. Our skill, of course, is Dragon Caller. Our match is up against Toons, an incredibly gimmicky combo deck that aims to end the game as soon as possible by activating Toon Rollback on a Toon Summon Skull. We're going first, but our hand isn't very good. We have a copy of Blue Dragon Summoner and 2 Champion's Vigilances, but without access to Lord of D, those Vigilances are just going to rot. Our opponent draws for turn, and unfortunately, they do have the majority of their play. They're going to special summon a copy of Toon Mermaid, then immediately turn around and special summon a Toon Summon Skull off of the top. They'll normal summon a copy of Masked Sorcerer as well. The last thing I need is for this card to pop off. We do draw a Windstorm of Aquata, which is incredibly important. After we set it, we're going to go ahead and flip up this Blue Dragon Summoner to rid the board of this Masked Sorcerer. We do a fair amount of damage to our opponent's life points, but not enough to be meaningful. Our opponent's going to take, about 600, and we'll pass it back to them. Unfortunately for us, this set card actually is a bluff. And what's worse, it's the best bluff in the game. It's Toon Table of Contents, which for some reason the starter decks inexplicably have. They're going to go ahead and get a copy of Toon Rollback. Afterwards, of course, they will activate Toon Rollback on this Toon Summon Skull and start attacking. Of course, we do have the Windstorm of Aquata set, so we are going to be able to prevent that from killing us immediately. And hopefully we should be able to win from this position, provided we can finally draw one of the Lord of D's in our deck. Off the top, we find the Flute of Summoning Dragon, and Dragon Caller is flexible, so we will be able to use our skill. We'll do that by revealing the Flute of Summoning Dragon to get a Lord of D from our deck. We'll then normal summon that copy of Lord of D and activate the Flute of Summoning Dragon to special summon Blue Eyes White Dragon from our hand, and then we'll go to combat. We'll attack into this Toon Summon Skull. Our opponent will chain a copy of Kunai with Chain, but thankfully these Champion's Vigilances will immediately win us the game. Our final deck list is Amazon. I don't know how this was allowed to happen, but Amazon received some of the most powerful tools from the TCG in Speed Duels. Amazoness Village ensures you'll never run out of monsters on board while simultaneously countering GK. Amazoness Sage is a damage step ST removal tool in a format where you might unironically play Dice Foon. Amazoness Heirloom is a simple way to protect your monsters and destroy your opponents, and you won't even take the damage if you're attaching it to Swordswoman. We'll speed through the card by card. We're on 3 copies of Amazoness Sage, who can destroy a spell or trap provided she survives combat, 3 Amazoness Swordswoman, who forces your opponent to take the damage from their attacks, 3 Amazoness Chain Master, who is okay, but is really just another body. For spells, we're on 3 copies of Amazoness Heirloom, which protects from battle once and then permits monster destruction, 3 copies of Amazoness Village, which boosts your Amazons and makes them float, and 3 Kunai with Chain and 2 Windstorm of Aquata. Our skill is Destiny Draw because it was much better than the tribal one. Our match is up against Gravekeeper. Our opponent's going to set one card, set a spell and trap, set another, and pass it back to us. 9 times out of 10, that's going to be a Recruiter, but we can't afford not to trigger it, so we'll go ahead and normal summon a copy of Amazoness Swordswoman. We'll set Village, and then equip this Amazoness Swordswoman with a copy of Amazoness Heirloom. This means even if we don't destroy our target, we can destroy it afterwards by virtue of our equip spell. We'll attack into our opponent's Gravekeeper's Recruiter, it's destroyed, and of course, they will add a copy of Gravekeeper's monster from their deck to their hand. The thing they're going to get is Gravekeeper's Oracle, the bane of my existence, and the only win condition in this deck. We'll pass it back to them, and the first thing they're going to do is set one card, followed by passing it back to us. That's interesting. We're going to go ahead and normal summon a copy of Amazoness Chainmaster, set a copy of Kunai with Chain, and go to battle phase. There's no use wasting an heirloom on this one. We want to heirloom something that's going to benefit from staying on the field. We get in for 1,700 points of damage, and then we attack directly with Amazoness Swordswoman. Our opponent will respond by flipping up one of their set cards, a Rite of Spirit. Rite of Spirit, of course, is just Call of the Haunted for Gravekeepers. They will go ahead and get Recruiter back. This advantage loop is just so strong. We will, of course, attack into Gravekeeper's Recruiter because we don't want them tributing it for Gravekeeper's Oracle. They're then going to trigger the effect of Recruiter and get themselves a copy of Gravekeeper's Priestess. Priestess isn't particularly scary, but boasts an impressive defensive stat, along with the ability, theoretically, to activate hidden temples. Our opponent is going to set Gravekeeper's Priestess, presumably, and one additional card, before passing it back to us. Only one card in the 2-card hand is known information, but what do we draw off the top but Amazoness Sage? We'll go ahead and normal summon her, followed by equipping her with Amazoness Heirloom. If she survives combat, she's able to destroy, in the damage step, a set spell or trap card, so it's unchainable. We'll go ahead and attack this set card. It is, in fact, Gravekeeper's Priestess, and then we'll destroy it with the effect of Heirloom, and destroy a spell and trap as well. We hit a Rite of Spirit, which is fantastic. We'll then attack directly with Swordswoman. Our opponent will go ahead and take it. They're now at 600. And then after attacking with Chainmaster, they will flip up this copy of Rite of Spirit, targeting, well, the very monster we just destroyed, Gravekeeper's Priestess. We can't destroy it, so we might as well attack it anyway, I suppose, and then try to combo them off with Kunai with Chain. I suppose that set card is likely Kunai as well, and what do you know, it is. They'll go ahead and switch this Chainmaster to defense position. Unfortunately, she's not particularly aptly named. We will pass it back to our opponent, and you know what's coming next. It's Gravekeeper's Oracle. Our opponent's going to tribute 4 Gravekeeper's Oracle and activate the effect that decreases the attack of all of my monsters by 2,000. That's really bad news because, of course, we don't have very many monsters with a larger attack stat than that. They'll then activate Wonder Wand, popping their own copy of Oracle so we can't beat them with Swordswoman, drawing 2 cards, and then passing it back? Well, they have 600 life points, and we have 200 points worth of attack on our entire board. We'll attack directly with Swordswoman, for giggles, and then attack directly with Chainmaster for a whopping 200 points of damage. It is still a 3-turn clock, and our opponent isn't really able to summon anything, because if we attack with Swordswoman, they'll take the damage and immediately lose. They're going to go ahead and pass it back to us once again. We'll put them on the clock and demand that they answer it this turn by attacking directly. So, let's see what they have. They could, of course, use their skill, but I don't think another monster is going to drag them out of this hole. They'll set one card, set a monster, and pass it back to us. Most likely that card is Kunai with Chain, or else they wouldn't bother setting it. We'll go ahead and attack with Swordswoman in case it is, and what do you know, it is Kunai with Chain. They'll change our monster to defense position, but of course we can still do this by attacking with Amazon Sage, taking a fair amount of damage off of the Priestess's defense, activating the effect of Heirloom to destroy it regardless, and then getting in for the final 200 points of damage. So that's that. I hope you enjoyed a first look at speed dueling, foregoing one unfortunate episode that I'd like to forget. These will of course increase in quantity and quality as the surrounding infrastructure is built. If you want to see me play the decks I make on this show on stream, I'm on twitch.tv/mbtygo every Monday from 7 to 9 Eastern Standard Time. And if you have a certain idea for a deck or archetype you want to see on a future episode of this show, let me know in the comments section and I'll see what I can do. Otherwise, I'll see you Wednesday.